Hello viewers, today I'm doing an after action report of our big D-Day game that we host every year here at our local game store, Maple Manor Games, here in Linden, Washington. I think it's the only retail store in Washington north of Everett. I don't even know if any store in Everett carries Flames of War or Team Yankee, but as you can see in this picture, there's plenty of products, so if you're in the area, come swing by and see if maybe you can pick something up. I believe they also have an online store that also you'll be able to order the stuff on, because, here's some stuff that's kind of out of stock in a lot of places. Anyways, enough shilling. How we do our big D-Day game is we set up 3 to 4, I think we had like 6 tables this year, so we had plenty of players, where, as you can see on screen, the goal is the Allies have to take this town. I don't remember if the town has a special name. I'm not really in charge of setting it up. I just have a couple armies and the 3D boards, or at least 2 3D boards to throw on. But as you can see, all the German reserves end up near their exit points or enter points. As you can see with the white paper on the table, D for Du-Hoc, you can see O for Ohmaha, and I think all the way at the far end is what we call the airborne landing table. As you can see on screen, this is kind of like O for Ohmaha, like I said. This is where the Omaha's reserves, we place them there, they move on like normal, but this is where Ohmaha, once they take their beach, will come in at. And they have a 4-foot section. This is to represent, well, we can't really connect all the tables together. There's not enough space. We'd have to run out like a stadium, and then nobody could reach the centers of the table. Speaking of Omaha, as you can see, here's the board. That's my 3D printed beach with the trench for Omaha. We are doing the FUBAR scenario. We modified it slightly so the Allies get to go first, or at least the Americans. We tried to set it up somewhat historically where there's like no terrain past the beach, so that's why you see nothing there but minefields and barbed wire. And next up is Point Du-Hoc. Now, as you can see, I've got cratered ground, because if you play the scenario normally, it's a little weird when you have an actual 2-scale wall, which you'll see later in the pictures. You may have seen it on my channel already with a way different board. But the cratered ground is to help actually the Rangers not just immediately pretty much lose every single year. The cratered ground gives them cover when they're cover for infantry, and bulletproof cover when they're stationary. So even if they're running around, they still get cover. Third, we have sword. We have the sword beach. You can see Mitch is in the background. He's playing his Germans. Ironically, Bo is playing his British. And we are using, for every other board, we're using the British Bulge scenario objective Walcheren. That it says it's a better representation of all the other beaches, whereas Helps on Its Way is a good representation of Du-Hoc, and FUBAR is obviously Omaha. But you can see he's got his bunkers. That big bunker is an 88. We had to house rule that fairly quickly once we realized that the 88 was the tank hunter 88 to be I think you get the Pack 40 against the Soviets. So we ended up flipping it over to the Pack 40 midway through the game, because it's like, well, no tank's going to survive the 88. And, well, they're crocodiles and people want to use their tanks. Fourth board. This is going to be Utah. Just pretty standard. Got some hills, got some trees, some terrain instead of to make it another boring flat land. But yeah, there's Utah. That's a 5-centimeter bunker. Next year, we're going to house rule the bunkers. Though the 5-centimeter only has an anti-tank of 8. For some reason, that's really stupid, because you see the 5-centimeter anti-tank guns next to it. Those have anti-tank 9. In the future, those are going to be anti-tank 9, just like the gun pits. We're probably going to make the big 88 bunkers into the flaks, just so tanks have a chance of making it onto the table, especially the bigger tanks, without just being completely just annihilated and go, well, I just wasted like 50 points on tanks. And lastly, we have the airborne table. Now, this is not the standard airborne scenario from D-Day America or the D-Day compilation book. This is essentially the morning after, so after they've taken that, they're now pushing into the Germans, so it's airborne versus Fallschirmjägers. I don't know the exact forces of what's all on the boards, except for the Ranger board, because that's the one I set up. I'm not going to bother going through the list, but just needless to say, this is pretty much an airborne company versus a Fallschirmjäger company with a bunch of support. Turn 1 for the Rangers is fairly boring. They get 2 platoons up. One of the boats floats away. He's got his mortars ready to come on. I think one of the boats got stuck, but he's got, I think those are one of the mortar platoons for the Rangers, and then one of the 4.2-inch chemical mortars that I added in instead of bringing those stupid 105s. So I found out in the battle report that I did last year, you can't fire from the boat, and good luck getting a 105 off a boat. Anyway, The Rangers have a bunch of mortar teams this year, and he's waiting. He did rule his aircraft, though. Heading over to Fubar, we can see that the Americans are slowly making their approach. It looks like 2 DDs out of the 3-man platoon landed. 1 tank got off the boat? Or is that supposed to be a 4th one? No, it should be a 3rd one. Or that might be just off a boat. But as you can see, the Rangers, Thunderbolts show up, and they actually get a mortar team with their 50 cals? I think it was. Yeah, they got a mortar team with their 50 cals. The British move up. They're trying to clear a couple minefields. Their Typhoons come on and start dropping bombs. I don't know. It looks like he may have gotten a couple of guys. I can't quite tell. Again, I wasn't actually playing. I was running around taking pictures and trying to help people with rules. I was mostly hanging around Du-Hoc because the player at Du-Hoc, well, like I said, Du-Hoc has a bunch of fancy rules to help people out. The Airborne immediately start going in an aggressive, murderous path and begin stomping the Fallschirmjägers into the dirt. As you can see, they pinned them down and then begin assaulting them. It was not good for the Fallschirmjägers this year. Utah shows up. He's using a couple of my Canadian or Sin City style DDs, which is why they stand out so well. But those, as you can see, he got all three of them on there. Except looks like the Pack 40s were able to nab one while he gets his infantry all lined up against the seawall. Moving on to turn 2, you see the Airborne are just like, screw it, we're on a warpath. We are straight up just going to make sure there's no Germans left on the board, as they just aggressively charge up the table. Typhoons come in again, start bombing infantry, whereas the British they clear their minefields, and they're starting to push up the right side with all their infantry. Keep in mind, this is when they thought that's when we realized that the 88 bunker was actually the tank hunter bunker, because I kept asking them, why aren't you bringing on your crocodiles? Oh, they don't stand a chance. Well, it's anti-tank 14. No, it's 17. Sherman's getting stuck in boats, and the Americans are still landing their infantry at Fubar. But as you can see, Stugs have shown up, because Fubar, the Germans get to roll their reserves on turn 1. Again, that's a 5-centimeter big bunker, so it's got an anti-tank of 8. But Stugs will do a lot of work. I think this is like turn 3. The British are moving up. They're trying to clear out more minefields, and they're just learning the Vietnam tactics of human waves, or maybe they took it from the Japanese, or they just throw bodies at the problem until the problem disappears. Lots of smoke rounds fired off to stop the Tobruk machine gun bunkers for the Americans, so they can actually get up to start assaulting, or start getting past. It looks like he got most of his infantry on the table at this point. For the record, I know the Shermans are all veterans, so they're all hit on 4s, but all the infantry are the assault battalion, assault company, that is hit on 3s. So they're green or rookie or trained or whatever it's called. No mercy from the Airborne as they continue to charge up the board, and looks like, I think there were 2 teams of 10.5 centimeters. They might have been 4s, 4-man teams, but yeah, as you can see, there's only 2 there hiding behind that tree. And there's a machine gun bunker on the far left. And 2 Pumas are there to help try to save the Fallschirmjägers, and it doesn't go so well. Utah, more infantry land. You can see some Stuarts start landing. They're starting to cross over the table. Again, the Germans on every other board except for Fubar have to wait till turn 3 to start rolling their reserves. And so the Stuarts are just like, nope, we don't care. We're just going to drive up and start doing damage. However, on turn 3, the Stugs show up for the Germans on sword, so the Typhoons come in and try to deal with them and fail miserably. But the right side is starting to weaken under the repeated human waves of infantry. As it looks like one machine gun bunker, one Tobruk machine gun bunker is gone, and it looks like that infantry platoon in the woods is nearly out. Utah, the Stuarts, more Stuarts show up. It looks like there's some M8 Scots all the way down to the end. Yeah, those are M8 Scots. It looks like he has another platoon of Stuarts that still need to come on the table. You can see off the board. But then the 4 that did come on started flanking and probably got taken out by a Pack 40. However, one of the Pack 40s is also gone, so I'm going to guess that's mortars. Or maybe it's Stuarts. Or the Shermans. Actually, it might have been a Sherman. I think the American Airborne got some of that German Pervitin, because they are not stopping on the Airborne table at all. Not even being slowed down by all the artillery, because that's a 3-man mortar platoon of, I think it's the 12-centimeter mortars. I think this is turn 5. That's when we realized that the 88 bunker is a tank hunter 88, so we dropped it to the Pack 40 because one of the Soviet packs, you get a Pack 40 tank, Pack 40 bunker. So he dropped down to Pack 40 to at least give the Churchills, not a complete loss. So as you can see, he's starting to try to land his Churchills, but my guess is it got stuck. And it looks like he needs to bring back a bunch of his infantry because they appear to be all gone at this point. Shermans get stuck in the sand and continue to perish under the barrage of Pack 40 and Stug fire. Also, the Thunderbolts and Typhoons kept coming to help the Fubar board, Ohmaha. And let me tell you, after like 10 turns of planes, like we probably threw 100 points of planes at this board, which is saying a lot because they're like 6 points apiece. Or 6 points per group. It really didn't help the Americans all that much, which was kind of funny. Utah slowly makes its advance, except for those stewards. Stewards are flanking. Stewards are stewarding. But it looks like all the 2 Pack 40 gun nests are gone, whereas the bunker's still around. Because according to the rules, you pull the bunker entirely instead of just leaving it there. But yeah, his weaker Pack 40 bunker, or not Pack 40. They're the 5 centimeter. They're not Pack 40s. The tanks would all be dead if they're Pack 40s. The 5 centimeters gun nests are gone, whereas the 5 centimeter bunker is still there because it's kind of worthless. So what are the Rangers doing during all this? Well, as you can see, they get up the wall. They got 2 platoons up the wall, and the cover did help, but the white platoon is down to 2 mans. That's the bazooka team and the platoon leader. They're succeeding their last stands. Whereas the gray platoon is another Ranger platoon, and it's up there now. Whereas the red platoon, you can see the red base guys. It's supposed to be red clay sand, I tried to do. They're an engineer platoon, so they get a bunch of bazookas and a bunch of machine guns. However, now that they're up there and they're going to stay stationary, they can now start spotting and being in bulletproof cover for the naval bombardment and the 4.2-inch chemical mortars down on the below. But as you can see, it's turn 3, so some Pumas. The 5 centimeter Pumas? Yeah, 5 centimeter Pumas are on the table. Looks like one crocodile got out of the boat, but more infantry show up, and they're just going to push. Or push. But without the infantry in the woods, or it looks like the infantry in the woods are low, so they should be able to assault that Tobruk machine gun pit. Meanwhile, at Utah, the Stugs show up for reserves, and the Germans are having to fall back. The Americans are quickly taking the beach. We found out one of the Shermans shouldn't be dead, so we took the smoke off of that. But the Stewarts are definitely gone. Anyway, the Germans are starting to pull back, trying to get their infantry onto the... oh, goodness, I keep saying... They're moving on to the city table to try and reinforce that when the Americans finally break... Or the Allies, when the Allies finally break through. Meanwhile, the Airborne are following the motto of can't stop, won't stop. And that's all that's left for the Fallschirmjägers is 1 machine gun bunker and whatever's left in that building, which I think is the HQ and 1 platoon. More cross-checks failed on the Sherman, so they're all kind of sitting out in the open and getting pelted by Stugs. And every time he does actually make it through the armor, he just completely fails on a firepower check. But it looks like the Americans are starting to push through the right side, kind of like the British, actually, because of the there's no more Tobruk bunkers there. Stugs push up to try to get the Shermans in range, because again, when we play by these rules, you get infinite infantry until you take your table, but you only have limited tanks, and tanks are a big deal in this D-Day game or D-Day campaign, so getting rid of them is absolutely worth it. So that's why the Stugs are moving up within range to start popping Shermans. But it looks like the Americans are pushing, and I think the Stewarts are off on a flanking mission to try and hit those Stugs in the side. British keep throwing bodies at the problem. Looks like the Churchills and now Wasps are stuck in boats. But more infantry come. Always the infantry. And a big old dice tray in the way. Thanks, Bo. The more the Shermans come on, the more they explode here at Fubar. So Omaha is absolutely holding up to the name of Fubar, because he's not advancing very fast. The Rangers are slowly making their way up. The HQ's on the table, as you can see down there. He forgot to put a platoon with the HQ, but he was like, it's fine, whatever. Those big bunkers up top, by the way, are empty. They're just cool, empty pieces of terrain. So his defenses are a machine gun Tobruk, a French turret Tobruk, and 2 centimeter AA gun nests. But as you can see, the Stugs are on. They got Stugs coming. But 1 platoon is almost wiped out. It's down to 3. 1 German platoon is almost wiped out. So it's down to 3 bases, and then also blue platoon is nearly out. Well, it's at half strength. Following turn for the Rangers, they lose their white platoon, but as you can see, the Germans are pretty much down to one-man green team, which is actually holding the objective still. So that's the reinforcement objective, which I didn't find my objective token until afterwards. It's supposed to be I made a, was it the 155 French artillery piece that the whole reason the Rangers attacked. But yeah, so once that guy's gone, they get to start rolling bonus dice for their reserves. Not much changes for Omaha. I think you can see some Shermans are starting to move up. Most of them are getting stuck in the sand. I think those are actually the 76s behind the seawall now. So with that said, hopefully they can start taking out some thugs. I'll give you a hint. It doesn't work out as planned. 1 wasp and 2 crocodiles make it off the beach, and this is where the Germans start deciding, maybe we should start pulling back now that 2 crocodile Churchills are about ready to burn everything alive. Here's a close-up shot of what's all stuck in the boats. Even with crosshair orders, one crocodile Churchill and 5 wasps are stuck in the boats. Airborne surround and take out the machine gun bunker. And now they're looking at that manor house and going, you guys are next. Remember how I mentioned those Stuarts are on a flanking mission? Yeah, you can see it right there. They got to the sides of the Stugs and are trying to pop them. Fortunately, it doesn't seem to have worked. And it looks like German infantry reserves came on as well. As you can see over there on the white paper, that would be the infantry reserves. As you can see, the Rangers got one more platoon on the table, getting ready to run up the rope ladder or beach exit. Meanwhile, the 2-centimeter Pumas are now rolling onto the table for the Germans. But all of the Ranger boats are currently stuck out in the water or stuck on beaches. I think they're mostly stuck out in the water. Here's the before picture of the Fallschirmjägers and their last stand. And here's afterwards. The airborne just ran up and stabbed them all into non-existence. With the Shermans exploding, including, as you can see, one of the 76s, both the Thunderbolts and Typhoons come on to try and help deal with Stugs and mortars. And I think the only thing that happens is a Stug gets bailed out. Flame on Wheels approaches the German defenses, including a wasp taking a detour to take out Tobruk bunkers. Rangers are losing guys up top because even in bulletproof cover, that's a lot of gunfire coming their way. But you can also see down below now that the white platoon is ready to do a Rangers lead the way up the blocking terrain. And they got rid of one of the barbed wires. I don't know if I said that. Yeah, they got rid of one of the barbed wires a long time ago. Well, unfortunately, it looks like the wasp was taken out, but the crocodiles got rid of several infantry and the big gun bunker. So now, and then the Stugs were like, nope, we're out of here. This is a bad match for us. The Typhoons finally score a kill on the Stugs. Doesn't help out the Americans much because they're still losing Shermans by the handful. But that's okay. That's what unlimited infantry are for, right? As you can see, he got like 2 platoons. I was going to say a whole bunch of infantry, but it looks like he got 2 platoons and a mortar platoon back on the beach. The British pretty much take over this board at this point, so it's a lot of rolling to try and get tanks off of boats. Looks like crocodiles are going to go take revenge for that wasp, and one more crocodile is going to go for that Pack 40, just so he doesn't lose any more wasps or Stuarts when they come on. But yeah, the British have taken Zord almost entirely. Now here's where we have to try and fix some of our scenario rules. As you can see, the airborne are now waiting to assault the city board, and we've made it so that the city board can't respond unless they are attacked. But that just means the airborne on turn like 8, or was it 7? I don't remember. We'll just sit there and wait until all the other beaches land. So in the future, we're going to work on trying to figure out how to solve this problem. Because this pretty much happens every year with airborne. They take the airborne landing table, and then they just sit and wait. Meanwhile, Stuarts and Wasps still can't get off the boat over here on Sword. Utah, however, the Stuarts and Shermans are now pushing up to try and get that last German infantry out of the way, and it looks like the Stuarts that were trying to do a flanking maneuver on the Stugs not only got taken out, but they also failed their last stand. So, also for the record, all the guys with sand base are the new U.S. Marine, or the new releases of the U.S. Marines. So they actually work out pretty well for the assault beach landings. They come out with almost just the right number of guys. And then I think the guys in the bottom right are actually his Ranger platoon. Over here on Du-Hoc, the Rangers are starting to get enough of their reserves in. You can see they have 2 81mm mortar Ranger platoons, and then they have the 4.2-inch chemicals. So with that, they'll be able to start dropping a whole bunch of artillery. Looks like only 2 guys from the white platoon were able to do enough movement to get up the wall to start clearing another barbed wire to give the Rangers another entrance up the wall. 1 Ranger platoon's down on the bottom, but up top it looks like there's only 3 guys left for the engineers, 1 more Ranger platoon leader, and then the HQ in the center. But there's also a full platoon to take the shots. But there's enough up there to spot for their artillery. For the 3 mortar teams, the naval bombardment, I also have a grasshopper that the player has been reluctant to put on the table because there's, 2 AA gun nests and the Pumas with the 2 centimeters. So that's why he's been holding off on bringing a grasshopper in. Omaha, the Americans are moving up with their infantry, but their tanks aren't doing so hot. Those Stugs are, the Stugs and the Pack 40s are doing a number on them. Meanwhile, over at Sword, the Churchills have eliminated a lot of their problems, and the British are starting to get some of their Stuarts and Wasps off their boats. Rangers either lost or pulled their 2 platoons up there, the Engineer platoon and the Ranger platoon. HQ is still there, or one of them, because it's 2 Ranger companies. And then it looks like a 2nd Ranger platoon made it up top, and white platoon made it up the wall, so now they're going to start flanking, and I think they threw a bunch of artillery on stuff. Nothing disappeared under artillery barrages yet. Well, as you can see, he actually did pull the Gray Squad entirely and just reconstitute it, and there's the 2 boats stuck, 1 out floating, and then the 3 mortar platoons just raining fire up the cliff. Well, you can see Toby sitting up there. He's in charge of the reserve forces over there on the reserve table, but for the most part, me and him have been running around helping with rules, and Toby's been focusing mostly on this board because the German defender is fairly new at the game, which is hilarious because how well he's doing, or how bad Terran's in charge of the Americans on Fubar. So as you see, there's Sherman stuck in boats, but it's not going great for the Americans on Fubar, like pretty standard actually. And I think this is the last picture I took of the British, because as you can see, he's going to reconstitute a machine gun platoon. He's got 6-pounders stuck in a boat. I don't know why he waited till now to get his 6-pounders on. And then there's more Wasps stuck in the boat, but it looks like the Stuarts got off. But eventually he's going to be able to get everything up the table. But until then, there's no point in... Well, at this point I was like, yeah, I'm not going to bother taking pictures because, well, you've cleared the board of Germans. They all ran away or are gone. And so now he's going to start pushing towards the city. And then Terran finally gets all his Shermans off the boats, and now they're stuck in sand. But it looks like his infantry, some of the infantry weathered all the machine gun fire getting up the beach. So now he's going to start, looks like he's starting to collapse the right side, or maybe that's, no, I don't think that's all his dudes on the right. I don't know, I can't remember, and I can't tell from this picture. But back to the city board, you can see Mitch's Stugs are up in the top left next to the church, and they're prepared to start firing on British when they reach the city. Don't know if we should allow the German reserve force to activate now when you retreat. Again, we've been doing this several years, and we're still trying to figure out how to actually handle this table and the airboard. Speaking of updates, it took 5 years. We've been doing this for 5-6 years now, and I finally got Du-Hoc to a good point. Anyway, the engineer platoon is ready to jump up. Looks like he's lost a bunch of Rangers up top. But the naval bombardment got a Stug. Looks like maybe the 4.2-inch mortars got a Puma. And of course, with that 5+ last stand, it ran away. And it looks like one of the 81mm mortars got the 2-centimeter gun nest. So he's starting to lose stuff really quickly. You can still see the Tobruk on the left and the French bunker on the right. But I think this is the last picture I have for day 1. So we played this. Day 1 was from, I think, 1:30. Well, he actually got started at 2 because people showed up late. Well, we started from 2 until 8. And then on day 2, we played from 8 in the morning till 1 in the afternoon. And the first picture on day 2 shows the Typhoon showing up to try and help the Utah, because Utah's been kind of stuck at a standstill for a couple turns because of those Stugs. But the Typhoon showed up to try and help deal with Stugs and fail miserably. The Rangers have gotten a decent foothold up top onto Du-Hoc on day 2. It looks like a naval bombardment got a second Stug, and it looks like a smoke bombardment went on afterwards. I don't think that was supposed to be possible, but I was not paying attention to this table at the time. And I believe it was actually the Thunderbolts that took out the Puma over there with their 50 cals. And then the second one ran. Meanwhile, the 2-centimeter is bailed out, and just the Rangers are now starting to push with artillery and all that jazz. Then the following turn, this is like turn 15 or 16, by the way. The last Stug runs away, and the two Cinery Pumas are like, we should probably back off and go reinforce the city. Go let the guys know, hey, the Americans are coming. But they're certainly not coming up Ohmaha Beach, that's for certain. I mean, they're kind of. They've got all the 76 Shermans are gone. But he's got, I think, his HQ and one platoon of 75 Shermans left. And the Americans are just having one hell of a time getting up Ohmaha. So it looks like he pulled White Platoon to reconstitute it. So it actually has all its guys. But then the Gray Squad and the Red Squad move up. The Engineer Platoon and a Ranger Platoon. And it looks like they assaulted the gun nest and got rid of it. So the Rangers essentially take Du-Hoc and are now just reconstituting their platoons to push into the city. I missed taking the picture of it, but I believe the aircraft came in. I don't know if it was the Typhoons or Thunderbolts came in and took out a second Stug. But more Shermans explode. More infantry reconstituted. I guess all that stuff on the right was Terrans, because as you can see, that pile of infantry on the right are gone. Or maybe it was Germans and they ran away. I can't tell. Or like physically ran up the board to go and reinforce the last city. Well, based off this picture, I'm guessing it was the Americans that were just mowed down by machine guns, because the Germans on the right, you still see all their tokens where they were, are backing up. They're like, nope, we're gonna go defend the city. We're gonna go hop in buildings and make sure we just don't get mowed down. So they're backing up. The Stugs are gonna hold, because again, if they can take out Shermans, it's good for the Germans. Ironically enough, over here on Utah, it wasn't the Stuarts, it wasn't the Scots, and it wasn't the Shermans. A single bazooka was finally able to take out a single Stug. I don't remember capturing the picture in between this and this picture, but he was able to flank one of the Stugs with two Shermans and took it out. He finally got a single kill on a Stug, which is why Toby just dropped a bunch of smoke on top of it for amusement's sake, which of course then meant the last Stug ran away. So for those of you keeping count, it took 14 Shermans to take down one Stug. Talk about a deal for the Germans. And with the Germans Pack 40 I keep calling them Pack 40s. The 5 centimeter gun nest taken out by Shermans, the Americans are now just pushing up the board on the right side, because that's where they were coming from, into the city. Realizing that we were completely out of time to even try to get any turns on the city, we just pushed into the city with pretty much everything. As you can see, you got the Utah on the right side with the orange bases and the Shermans. The I think that's Ohmaha. Yeah, Ohmaha on the left, and then Bo standing there on the right, deploying the British. We were trying to play it as if you don't know where there's infantry are. So as you can see, wasps and infantry are getting ready to unload onto the building and assault it. I don't think there was anything in that building, actually. Oh, and as you can see, the airborne on the top right are starting to they started piling into buildings. They started piling into buildings. So I know during the Allied turn there was a bunch of assaults, because Toby was kind of bragging about driving off every single assault that happened. I don't really know exactly where the assaults were happening, but I was a little busy because I was starting to pick up Fubar and Du-Hoc. Gotta load up all the boards in my car. And I was helping Tom pick up, and I was also putting away armies and whatnot. I was helping Tom put his stuff away that he had. But yeah, then this is the German counter turn, because this is the last turn of the game, and it looks like 3 of the 4 Stuarts are gone there. And 2 more Stuarts were taken out over here. And with the Panzer Force, they were able to get a side shot on a crocodile and made it through and took out a crocodile from the side. But unfortunately, we ran out of time, and that is the last turn. So, based off of time, the Germans won. You could probably make a pretty good guess that the Americans were going to win, because the Rangers hadn't even reached the board. They had 4 full Ranger platoons with 3 mortar teams, and we still had our aircraft. Now, when we do this, we say the naval bombardment can shoot any of the beaches, but it can't reach far enough back to hit the city. Because with an anti-tank of 4 on top, it's probably not the USS Texas. That'd be like an anti-tank of 10 or 12 with that's 14 or 12-inch guns. I forget what the Texas had. But as you can see, we're trying to figure out rules. I think next year we're going to have it so the Allies don't just stop and wait, because the airborne always takes over its table fairly quickly. We're going to have them just straight up push into the city, because you don't know what the other beaches are doing. We're also going to try to make it so that you have to take the objectives, because over the years we've had it so, if you make it halfway up the board, you can't reconstitute your infantry. Well, then everyone just sits back until they wipe out the Germans and then just get all their infantry back. That's what the Rangers were doing. Or you take the objective, and well, again, you just avoid the objective. So I think one of us will have to be a GM. I don't mind doing it with taking pictures, but forcing people to actually do the objectives, or even just keep pushing on. We will also not be doing, I believe we won't be doing Panzer IVs on the reserve table. In reality, it should be either an SS platoon, or, my opinion, it should be Mitch's 21st Panzers, because those are the more famous guys who counterattack. So a 21st Panzer infantry company instead of the Hotchkiss company, because that's all artillery. I think that should be what's in the reserve table. And once it gets attacked, and if you're forced to attack it as soon as you can, like the airborne wipeout, take their board. They push onto the table, because I think the airborne, if it's just down to half tracks instead of all the Panzer IVs, I think that the airborne could, if they have enough guys left alive, they usually do, would have a decent amount of time to or have a decent chance of actually taking the city on their own. However, we're also gonna start getting some unarmored vehicles, so that way we can have proper infantry show up on reserves instead of everyone just bringing tons of Stugs. Because I know there were Stugs there, but I don't think there were any Stugs that attacked Du-Hoc. I think it would have just been infantry. So I'm going to get some more German infantry in that. But yeah, that's our yearly game of Flames of War D-Day. We do this every year. But thank you all for watching, and we'll see you in the next report. Next battle report or campaign or whatever the heck I'm doing. Bye.